Hi, and this is the Photoshop. Earlier I showed you some of the basics of the class, and now I want to show you how to use the program itself. I clicked here to get it open, and obviously I didn't want to wait for it to do its thing, so I've already opened it up. These are some previous files that I've had open. Obviously, if this is the first time you're ever using it, won't have that issue. And there's a segment here called Learn that's really cool, and it has some tutorials that will help you understand the material. I will have a separate video on how to download Adobe for the current semester, which is fall of 2020. You'll get it for free, and hopefully for the spring of 2021 that'll be the case. After that, I do not know, but I won't swear to it. So one of the things I wanted to point out is if I wanted to start something new, I just click on Create New. And then what's going to happen is it's going to go to the last one that I've set up. And I've been having some issues, so I wanted to point this out to you right off the bat. For some weird reason, anything that's dealing with an artboard is not working. So normally you would have this pop up as your default. Please use that because all the tools are working. When you pick on one of these other default settings, what happens is the crop tool is not working, and that's one of the many tools that you really absolutely positively need. And so that's why I wanted to show you that. Now, I can come up here and put a name if I wanted to, or I can just leave it untitled. Oops. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in first. Just leave first. Now I have the option of going inches or pixels, which is kind of ironic because when I first started I didn't like pixels at all and I loved inches, and now it's just the exact opposite. I like pixels more than I like inches. Now this is one of the things you need to be aware of. 300 resolution is if you're going to be using print. So in other words, if you have a brochure and you have a graphic that you want to be in there, you want to make sure it's 300 pixels per inch. Since we're going to be using JPEGs and doing a lot of work with on the web, actually all of our work is going to be on the web except maybe one, then you need to drop it down to 72. Now notice it says RGB. Let's say that I did want to do something print. I would probably either want to do CMYK, which is the default for print, or RGB. Well, RGB, red, green, blue, whereas CMYK is cyan, magenta, yellow, and key being black. And the difference is you add colors with RGB, you subtract colors with CMYK. So we're going to be playing mostly with RGB. And obviously I can bump up the bit to 16 or 32, but 8 is more than enough for what we're going to be doing. This is a pretty big size, but I just wanted to do that right off the bat, and I'm going to go OK. Now I've got some other files and formats that I want to show you. So I'm going to start off with PNG. Ping. This is a relatively new format in the web, and what it does is it does a really good job for transparency. So you notice there's no background. If you are using a color background and you're using PNG, shame on you, because the file is going to be so much bigger than it absolutely positively has to be. Now for this class, I'm not going to require you to save it as a PNG. And by the way, that's the default that Photoshop wants you to export it as, is a PNG, which I never could quite understand. GIF and JPEGs are the two major ones. Well, this is a JPEG. The bad thing about JPEGs is you're going to have a background, whether it be white, blue, red, or whatever, or a background color. But it's nice because it's smaller in file size. Same way with GIF. You can have some that have a background versus having it without a background. So I'm going to come over here and show you this. Now the main thing that's different between JPEG and GIF is GIF, and yes, it's GIF. It's called GIF. I lost a bet on that one. It was a format that was created by CompuServe, and we tracked it down, and sure enough, it's pronounced GIF, not GIF. So if I was to use this, I would go File, Export, Save for Web Legacy. And since it's already a GIF, what it does is it finds the most popular colors that are available. Well, this cardinal is pretty flat, pretty boring, and would do a really good job of transparency since there's no drop shadows or anything like that that gives it any kind of three-dimensionality. So I could get away with using a GIF, and it might actually be smaller than some of the other options. But what I'm going to want you to do eventually is do JPEGs, and then I want you to optimize it. So I'm going to just hit cancel for that instead of doing that. Well, here we've got a cheeseburger, and I'm going to go File, Export, Save for Web Legacy. And once again, since it was already a GIF, it's going to show you the colors. Well, these are the most popular 256 colors that are on that. And what happens is Photoshop goes through this whole document and finds all the colors. And let's kind of blow this up just a teeny bit. So in other words, it will pick some reds and say, oh no, it's really this red, or gray, or black, or white, or whatever. And that's how it limits the file size. And for the longest time, you know, back in the 90s and late 80s, this was the ideal format. And then JPEG came around. And JPEG's really nice because what happens is it will compress instead of index. And so you have all the colors available. So right here, you only have 256 colors. So they call that indexing. They say, hey, we're just going to pick the most popular colors and then work from there. So I'm going to hit cancel. Now, if you're going to be editing a GIF, this is very important. We want to go to Image, Mode, Image, Mode, RGB. You don't want to be limited to those 256 colors. So by changing the mode to RGB, you're going to have all 16 million colors. So that's the key about editing GIFs. And then you can come back and export it as a GIF and go back to the most popular 256. It gives you a lot more flexibility that way. So here's cheese.jpg. That's something that I've already saved. I'm going to go File, Export, Save for Web. Oops. Did I hit cheese JPEG? Yeah, File. Oh, I know what it's doing. It's remembering the last. Yeah, let's go back here to the original. Instead of GIF, we're going to go JPEG. And there we go. JPEGs are no longer indexed. It's going to have all those 16 million colors. So now it's no longer trying to save it. Well, what I want to do is I want to optimize it. So I'm going to do 4 up. Now this is where you kind of have to use your eyeball. And what you're going to try to do is you're going to change the size to get it down to a certain size, or the quality. Now what you're looking for when you're dealing with quality is you're looking for pixelization. So 60% is right there. 30%, and to be honest with you, I can't really tell the difference between the two. So typically I would go with this, but since it's already so low, I'm going to go with the 30% just to be safe and hit save. And then since it's already there, I'm going to hit save and I'm going to replace it. So that's how you optimize a JPEG. So there's my veggie, there's my GIF. Now this is something that would be an awesome final if you did something like this. I don't want you to copy what I've done, but you know, I'm a big fan of Star Wars, and that's Ahsoka Tano, and she's one of my favorite characters, so I decided to do a little tribute to her when they came out with season 7. So the reason I'm showing you this, first of all, is because I wanted to show you what you can do with panels. So I'm going to click and drag. So I still have my mouse button down. The nice thing about a PSD is it keeps all of the layers. And then when you save it out as a JPEG, the layers go away. Now another thing you can do, this is kind of where it gets tricky because sometimes if you move it around, I'm clicking, I still have my mouse button down. Notice how I've got that blue on my screen. That's saying if I let go right now, it's going to drop that panel there. Well, I don't really want to do that, so I'm going to come back up here to the, and I grabbed the wrong one. Oh, I hate when I do that. Go like that. Now another thing I can do is I like to call these push-ups. So I'm going to go small, big, small, big. I don't really want it. Close it all together. Now, if I change my mind and go, oh, I really wanted all those panels, but typically when I'm playing with it, I will take a panel and I will move it off to my other screen. But if I accidentally made a mistake, what I can do is I can come back and find the panels that I'm missing. So in other words, I definitely want to have layers, so I bring it up and all these other ones are hiding behind it. Channels and paths, that's fine. But if I want to reset it all together, I can come up to this little icon right here, click on that down arrow, and then reset essentials. And I am going to click right here, and I'm going to close this tab because I really don't want it. I'm happy with this. I really don't care about this, but it's so small I don't really want to mess with it. So like I said, you're always going to want to save it as a PSD. Now the thing you got to understand about PSDs is they're huge in file size. They've not done the compression techniques. So remember I said in the other video that you want to be using Chrome to upload. If I was to try to upload this using Firefox and Internet Explorer or Edge, it would either hang or take forever. And so that's why I always upload all my files using Chrome. So that's Ahsoka, and if I wanted to get rid of that, just click right there, come up here to that little X, click right there, goodbye cheese, goodbye cheese. Now notice I had a little star up there that's saying, hey, you haven't saved it. Do I want to save this? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And now also I have is veggie. And there I've got my blank palette that I can play with. Now what I want to do is I want to show you some tools. Obviously there's a whole bunch of tools right here. Notice that there's a little kind of arrow right there. First of all, it's going to give you hints as to how to do it, but then I'm going to right click and it's going to show me more options. Same way with the lasso, more options. Same way with the content aware. Same way with the cropping. There we go. We got crop. Let's go there, clone stamp. So if you're looking for different options, a lot of times they're hidden there. Now this is a new thing that I don't know why Adobe does this. You might have to right click here and add some of these more standard tools. Why they're hiding it by default is beyond me. You would think that they would put them up and utilize the whole screen and then be done with it that. But I don't want to do that. Hit cancel. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on my text tool and I am going to click right in here and then it puts some boring text there for me. So I'm going to go, I love Photoshop, exclamation mark. Now I want to center it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click up here to my move tool and then I'm going to move it and I'm going to try to center it. And I've got these little blue line. Those are my guides. It will help me align it centered. Come on. There we go. Now, if I want to make this better or bigger, well, better too, in my opinion, I can do a Control T. And notice I get a little box around it with some handlebars. Now I can click and drag, and I'm still holding down that mouse button, and it will drag and make it bigger and bigger. And then if I wanted to, I could get it like that. I can click on the Control key and I can just drag it up and it won't keep it proportional anymore. And I can make it slit. I can go backwards, upwards, forwards, just all sorts of kind of fun stuff. That's holding down the Control key. There we go. Now, I've decided that I don't like red for some reason. I don't know why. I'm just kind of in that mode. So I'm going to double click over here on the T itself. If you click over here, it's not going to do it. So I'm going to double click on the T, and then notice how it's right up there. Now I'm going to come to my swatches, and I really don't like the way they've segmented this out. They used to have all the web colors right there, and now you kind of got to play with it. I'm going to set it up for later assignments, but for now I'm just going to come up here and go blue. Now it doesn't look like it changed it to blue, but I know it's blue because right there it's blue. And then I'm going to click outside of it. Actually, I got to click inside of it now. I used to be able to click outside. There we go. Now I've got that insertion point, so if I wanted to, I can change this. So in other words, if I wanted to change the exclamation mark to question mark, I could do that. Or if I wanted this L to be a capital, I could hit right there. I better put that back down to an exclamation mark. There we go. Now, some of the other things you can do is, like I said, move it around here. I can resize it. Doing a Control T. Oh, there we go. Got it in the middle. Now, one of the things I'm going to come... Oh, you know, just leave that. I'm going to do Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. Goes back. Control Shift Z. Goes forward, goes forward, goes forward. Control Z. Now, I'm going to make a mistake every now and then because they just changed the way to do it. And I've learned how to do Control Z used to go backwards and forwards, then backwards and forwards. And I'll tend to think about it that way. Now, another thing I want to do is I want to change it again. I'm going to double click up here. And the reason I wanted to change it was to show you the ribbon up here. So I've got, you know, the font size here. If I want it to be sharp, I can change it to smooth. I've got it set as bold, but I could do bold italic. Or if I don't like Arial anymore, I can select up here from all the different fonts. And I really like this because it shows you on the screen right there, and then it tries to give you a sample right here. Ooh, yeah. Ooh, nah. Maybe. Oh, not really. Nope. Yeah, I'm going to go with that one. Now, another thing we can do is we can warp our text. So we're going to click right there. And what happens is this panel pops up here. By default, it says none. I really don't like that. I wish they would just come with some options, but I'm going to do an arch. And then if I don't like it, I can change it down like that. Or I can distort it like that. Ooh, I kind of like that one. I can do a bulge. Arch up, I'm sorry. Bulge. Arch upper's better. But there's a whole bunch of different ones. Like we can be patriotic, put a flag. We can squeeze, we can twist. No, don't like that. And like I said, you can just tweak it to your heart's content. And, you know, one of the things you're going to have to do with Photoshop is play with it. It is amazing what you can do. But you just got to have an attitude like a child. You're just going to see what happens. That's a trick that I learned from some former girlfriend's kids. They showed me how to play with this stuff. And that's like, you know, that's really good. Because they would try something and they'd just go down here and hit the next panel and hit the next panel or hit the next setting and see what it does. And they came up with some really creative information. Now, I don't have this next panel that I want to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Window, Styles. Oh, why is it not doing that? Huh, that is weird. I had to click off of it. That's new. Oh man, they got rid of some of my favorite styles. Oh, this stinks. I'm gonna have to go find some of the older styles for you. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that they changed styles. I didn't even think to look here before I did this. But you got all these different styles. And what they end up doing is they take this layer information and add stuff. Now, if you like some of this, you say, well, I want to keep the bevel and emboss. I like the stroke. I like the grow. Color overlay, no, I don't know about that. Pattern overlay, maybe. Drop shadow. And then what I just did is I double clicked and then you can tweak it from there. But we're going to get into that in more detail later. But the assignment that I'm going to have you do, and I'm going to close this out, is I want you to do your name. So what we're going to do is I've got here, but I've got a lot of dead space, and we hate dead space. So what I'm going to come up here and use my crop tool. And these handles are new. These are kind of cool. I like them that way. You click right there, and I'm clicking and dragging it. Now what they do is they do it in thirds, so it helps you do with the or play with the alignment. Another option you can have is you can get rid of this crop panel. I am not going to delete the crop panel, so I'm going to leave it there because I may change my mind or I may want to add something to it later. Now the only reason you may want to delete that is one, the file size is just getting too hard to manage. Like I said, you can get up in megs the size. I've had files that were 100 megs in size. So now I've got my graphic right here. I can double click and it's now right there. So I am going to want you to save it as a PSD. Now the PSD is the native format. It keeps all the layers and all the layers information. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go File, Save, and then it's going to ask me where do I want to save it. Well, it just so happens that I've got a folder on my desktop called Website Images, and I'm going to save it as first.psd and hit Save. And then OK. You should always save a PSD. Always. Oh, let me say that again. Always save the PSD. True story time. I had a student who did some wonderful work on logos for a company, and then the company got bought out, and the new CEO wanted to change some of the colors. Well, the basic information and the basic layout she liked, but she did not like the background. And so what they ended up doing is they took the PSD, and she was able to make some minor changes, and it was fine. Now, another thing that I would like you to do is I would like you to change the background color. So I'm going to come over here and click on my layer. It's background layer. And I'm going to pick some ridiculous color. I don't know what color that is, or maybe I'll do a gradient. Let's do Paint Bucket Tool. I definitely don't want blue. So let's click here. And I'm sorry, it's off on the screen. Let's go kind of an orange and hit OK. And now notice that I'm right here. There we go. Now I'm going to show you something very important because layer order counts. So I'm going to click and drag this layer above the text and watch what happens. Yeah, if I can get it. There, I got the blue line. It disappears. Well, why? Because this is a solid color and the text is below that. So I'm going to click right here, bring it back down, and there we go. And then obviously, as long as I'm on this layer, and this is my biggest mistake, is I never pay attention to what layer I'm on, and I accidentally changed the wrong layer. Well, if I like this layer right here, what I can do is I can click on that and lock it so that I don't accidentally come back here and change it. And then I can play with this all I want. Now, another thing I want to show you is I like to call this the evil eye, but it's the show hide. You can have that layer disappear or show. Same way with all these options right here, like we did. Ooh, nah, I don't like that. Maybe. I think I'll leave it. So there we go. Now, I've saved it as PSD. I've changed the background color, so shame on me. I got to save it again. It's file save. And it's a good idea to save every, few minutes, every 10, 15. Although, in the settings here under preference, you can tell it how often to save. Also, my main thing is the interface. For some reason, people like black. I really don't. My eyes just aren't really that good. So I like a gray here is better. I could probably live with that black, but a gray for my old eyes work much, much better. So let's go okay with that. But that's where you can change all the different settings is under preferences. One of them that you might have to play around with is performance because, good old Photoshop is a memory hog. Same way with a scratch disk. That's just stealing more memory from RAM. Well, don't have it. What we'll do is we'll save it onto the hard drive. And then we got camera raw and all that kind of good stuff. So we're not going to really worry about that too much. So I've saved it as a PSD. I don't see the little star, so I know that it's been saved. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go File, Export, Save for Web Legacy. Now what I want to do is I want to compare. So I've got 30 there. I got 15 and I'm looking for pixelization. I'm seeing a little pixelization right here. I'm going to bump this up to the highest because I definitely want JPEG. Meant to hit this. Well, let's just go high. Yeah, at high it's 163. That's not acceptable. Here is medium and it's going to be 88. I can live with that. However, there may be occasion where you have to change the size of the actual document to get it under 100K. This is not the case for here, but if I ever had to, what I could do is maybe go, well, let's say I was using this. I could go the highest quality or a high quality, I should say, and then I can say I'm 160. I could go 75% of the original size. And now I'm going to click on it, and it's 105, so it's real close. I'm going to go 70, click on it again, and now it's 94. And then I can hit save. And then save. Now, you've got your PSD, you've got your JPEG, and then the next thing you want to do is you want to come over here to Chrome. Remember Chrome, and then come to Canvas, log in. For some weird reason, it hasn't accepted my updates in password. There we go. And let's go Photoshop Online. And for you to be able to see it, how it looks like, I'm going to go into Student View. And then I would go into Assignments. And then Name. Submit Assignment. And then I would choose a file. And then I would have to come to my desktop. And I've been saving in website under images. And what did I save that as? First. So I want to save first.jpg first. And remember, I always want JPGs and PSDs. Except for the animation assignment. Then I'm going to allow you to do an animated GIF or a movie. And then I click here. I'm going to add another file, which is going to be the PSD. Oh, wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. Let me try that again. First.jpg, okay. I meant to click on another file and choose File and first.psd. Now the reason I like JPEG first is because that way it will pop up and I can see what the work that you've done. And then I hit Submit Assignment and it should go. There we go. And then this is how I would grade it. So I'm going to close this out. And hopefully this makes sense to you. It's a lot of information. It's okay to be overwhelmed. And just have some fun. I mean, just play with this stuff because this class was designed, one, to create a portfolio for you, and then two, to have fun and be creative. And, you know, don't be regimented. Just have some fun, explore, and beware because it's very easy to spend hours and hours and not really notice it because time's flying because you're having so much fun. So, and have a good day.